All right, let's jump right into this quote from John Bradshaw. Mistakes are our teachers. They help us to learn. Now, at first glance, this is a disarmingly simple, maybe even a little cliché, bumper sticker kind of sentiment. It lands so easily that you might just nod your head and completely move on. But today, well, we and the thinkers we'll be looking at are going to completely subvert this quote. We're going to hold it up against collective wisdom spanning thousands of years, and we're going to transform this simple little phrase into a radical thesis for organizing your entire life.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring the architecture of meaning, wisdom for the imperfect life. Over the next few minutes, we're going to uncover how to find true purpose. And spoiler alert, it is not by escaping your daily frustrations or waiting for that magical perfect moment. It's actually about embracing those exact limitations as the precise conditions required for meaning. You see, as we'll find out, every single tradition we look at today makes the exact same argument. Your imperfection is not the obstacle, it's the door.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The door of imperfection. 2. Winning the morning. 3. The cosmic and intimate. 4. Power, virtue, and choice. And finally, 5. The map of threads.
Let's get right into it with part 1, the door of imperfection, the paradox of the path forward.
Pretty much our whole lives, we've been taught to think of illness, failure, and limitation as, interruptions to our real work. We always think, oh, if I can just get past this cold, or if I can just fix this one flaw, then I can finally begin. But today, we are reframing that entirely. Imperfection is the very door through which arrival becomes possible. Leo Tolstoy actually pushed this idea to its absolute limit when he wrote about his time with the terminally ill. He realized something profound. A person can fulfill their life's purpose equally in illness as in health. He noted that limitations, like a severe illness, almost always destroy physical power, sure, but in doing so, they release the true power of one's soul. The spiritual guide Anthony DeMello echoed this beautifully too. He famously taught that enlightenment is a journey without distance, meaning if there is no perfect, distant destination to travel toward, then the messy, imperfect condition you're inhabiting right now, it isn't the problem. It is literally the only place arrival is ever possible.
Moving on to part 2, winning the morning, getting out of bed and into the work.
So it's one thing to accept imperfection in theory, right? But it's a completely different animal to live it at 6 a.m. In the microscopic, muddy reality of just trying to start your day, we so often find ourselves waiting for Plato's Republic, the ultimate flawless ideal conditions. But the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who literally meditated in the pre-dawn hours while holding the most powerful office on earth, constantly reminded himself not to wait for the perfection of Plato's Republic. Why? Because holding out for perfect conditions leads to nothing but dissatisfaction, irritation, and delay. Real life actually demands a humbler, much harder standard, daily incremental progress.
Battle the warm covers. Morning, realize the urgency of life. Day, get to work. In his meditations, we literally see Marcus Aurelius, fully human, arguing with himself under the warm covers. And honestly, there is something deeply, deeply comforting about the fact that even the all-powerful ruler of the known world struggled with the universally human urge to just hit snooze and stay under the blankets. But Marcus understood that a well-begun morning is the absolute foundation of a masterpiece day.
Well begun is half won, so get started. This quote from Ryan Holiday hits the nail on the head when it comes to that morning battle. But how do we actually find the motivation to throw those covers back? We apply what Holiday calls the memento mori filter. Ask yourself this: if your time was limited, like if you knew you only had a few months left to live, what would you stop doing right away? When you apply that filter, the urgency to just get up and do the work becomes crystal clear.
Which brings us to section 3, the cosmic and intimate, washing away the dust of daily life.
Okay, so we've conquered the morning routine. Now let's zoom all the way out to the cosmic scale to see how the vast universe actually clarifies our most intimate earthly moments. The Stoic philosopher Seneca observed that the world itself is a huge temple of all the gods, and Marcus Aurelius counseled us to watch the stars in their courses and imagine running alongside them. What's wild is that thousands of years later, modern cosmologist Neil deGrasse Tyson described the exact same experience. Tyson says standing beneath the night sky fills us with a feeling of infinitesimal smallness, alongside an extreme connectedness to the whole. Looking at the stars gives us this cosmic perspective that just washes away our trivial earthly dust. But remember, this isn't an escape from reality. This cosmic perspective actually builds into our daily actions through a really vital distinction: experiencing life, which is feeling the rain, versus merely enduring it, which is just getting wet. Bob Marley perfectly captured this idea. The cosmic perspective shows you the true scale of what actually matters, so you can really experience life rather than just gritting your teeth and enduring it. When you come back inside from looking at the stars, you're supposed to bring that immense sense of scale with you. So think about it. How long can you go today without chiding your kids over little things that absolutely won't matter 5 years from now? The stars show us what deserves our care and what is just, well, earthly dust.
All right, Section 4, Power, Virtue, and Choice, the worldly lessons of letting go.
Let's shift gears to how this internal philosophy plays out in the external world of money, power, and high-stakes choices. Because, let's face it, virtue is easy in a vacuum. But what happens when there's a real cost attached? Take this amount, $5. This tiny sum represented a massive moral choice for young Jimmy Carter. Back in the mid-20th century, Carter was a successful farmer in a small southern town. He was heavily pressured to join the White Citizens Council, which was a deeply racist organization. The dues, just $5. But Carter flat-out refused. He said he would sooner flush $5 down the toilet than fund them. Now, his wife knew this stance would cost their business dearly. But because they had built financial stability, they could absorb that hit. They chose to exercise a moral freedom that their neighbors simply felt they couldn't.
And this brings us right to the conditions of virtue. The Stoics taught that money and power are indifferent, meaning they are neither inherently good nor bad. But having them can create the room for virtue, just like Jimmy Carter's financial stability allowed for his moral stand. There's a catch, though. External conditions only work if you maintain an interior moral covenant with yourself to actually make the right choices. You absolutely have to maintain that inner discipline.
Which leads us to a pretty profound daily practice. How long can you go today without criticism? The philosopher Lao Tzu observed that kind people don't argue, and those who like to argue are rarely kind. Practicing this wisdom means actively restraining the urge to have an opinion about every single small thing. It means just observing without immediately reacting. Marcus Aurelius noted that a stone thrown up into the air gains nothing from rising and loses nothing when it falls. We need to let the stones of daily life rise and fall without interpreting every little arc as a referendum on our worth.
Finally, Section 5, the map of threads, where everything converges.
So we have covered a lot of ground today, from the Roman Empire to Jimmy Carter's farm, from Leo Tolstoy to modern cosmology. But here's the thing. They aren't isolated ideas. Reading across all these distinct voices, a beautifully unified structure emerges. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. We've got 4 threads: imperfection as the path, scale from the cosmic to the intimate, the urgency of time, and finally, virtue and kindness under pressure. Now, not one of these is sufficient on its own. Cosmic perspective without intimate kindness? That's just escapism. Urgency without accepting imperfection? That just becomes paralyzing anxiety. But together, these 4 distinct threads hold together a single, incredibly powerful argument about how to live.
And this leads us to the absolute core of it all, our central truth. You are limited, mortal, and imperfect, and that is exactly where meaning becomes possible. You do not need to be better, larger, or finished in order to begin. You already have what is needed. The messy, imperfect condition you are in right now is not a problem to be corrected. It's the only place arrival is ever possible. It is a contribution waiting to be made to the world.
Embracing this truth requires making a tough choice between dead time and alive time. Dead time is comfortable, avoidant, smooth. It's basically staying under the warm covers. Alive time, on the other hand, is stepping directly into the storm. It's difficult, for sure, but it is deeply, deeply meaningful. You have to tolerate that difficult blank space. You have to be willing to walk out into the storm.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this somewhat devastating question. Are you inventing things to do just to avoid the important work? What comfortable, perfect illusions are you still holding on to? And think about this. What profound meaning could you finally achieve if you stopped waiting for perfection and completely embraced your perfectly imperfect reality starting today? Think about that for a bit, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.